Tonight, Tel Aviv wasn't struck by just one missile. It was hit by dozens of blasts happening at the same time. Iranian cluster weapons spread across the city. More than 12 sites were impacted simultaneously. This isn't a routine missile strike. This is a different form of warfare, and it may have revealed a vulnerability Israel cannot quickly resolve. On the night of March 18th, the attack pattern over Tel Aviv shifted in a way that immediately caught the attention of both residents and analysts. Air raid sirens echoed across central Israel as incoming threats were identified. Within minutes, defense systems were activated, and interception attempts illuminated the night sky. But as events unfolded, reports from the ground indicated that this strike was unlike previous ones. Instead of isolated impacts, explosions were reported across several locations almost at once. Early assessments suggested that more than a dozen separate sites were struck across the Tel Aviv metro area. Witnesses described rapid bursts of explosions, spreading across residential areas and business districts rather than focusing on one target. Emergency responders were quickly deployed as reports of injuries and infrastructure damage began to surface. Buildings were damaged, fires broke out in multiple areas, and roads were temporarily closed as first responders moved through affected neighborhoods. What made this strike different was not just its scale, but its pattern. Previous missile attacks had typically focused on single impact zones. This time, the spread of explosions suggested a different type of payload, one intended to distribute damage over a broader area. That shift immediately raised questions about the weapon used. The pattern of impacts across Tel Aviv pointed to a specific type of system. Cluster munitions function very differently from traditional missile warheads. Instead of delivering a single explosion to one location, a cluster-equipped missile releases multiple smaller submunitions during the final phase of its flight. At a set altitude, the main warhead splits apart. Dozens of smaller bomblets are then dispersed across a wide area, spreading out as they fall toward the ground. Each submunition carries its own explosive charge, effectively turning one missile into many simultaneous impact points. This creates a fundamentally different battlefield effect. Traditional warheads concentrate their force in one location. Cluster munitions, by contrast, are designed to cover large areas, sometimes spanning several kilometers, making them particularly effective against spread-out targets. For defensive systems, this creates a major challenge. Air defense networks are generally designed to intercept incoming missiles before they release their payload. Once submunitions are deployed, the number of falling objects increases dramatically, and many become too small or too numerous to track individually within the available response time. That means interception becomes far less effective after separation. In densely populated urban environments, the risks increase because the bomblets spread across wide areas. They raise the likelihood of damage to multiple locations, including civilian infrastructure, within a very short time frame. Israel's air defense network is built as a layered system designed to counter a wide range of threats at different altitudes. At the lower level, Iron Dome is optimized to intercept rockets and short-range projectiles. For medium-range threats, David's Sling provides coverage, while the Arrow system is designed to engage long-range ballistic missiles outside the atmosphere. Together, these systems form one of the most advanced defensive networks in the world, but they are mainly built to intercept single incoming threats, missiles following a defined path toward a predicted impact point. Cluster munitions introduce a different challenge. If the main missile is not intercepted before payload separation, dozens of smaller submunitions are released during descent. At that stage, the defensive challenge increases instantly. Tracking and intercepting each individual bomblet becomes extremely difficult, especially within the limited time window available. Recent conditions may have added further strain. After days of continuous alerts and repeated engagements, defensive systems and crews were already operating under sustained pressure. Interceptors must be allocated carefully, and radar systems must process large volumes of incoming data in real time. Early warning limitations can also reduce reaction time. Even a slight delay in detection narrows the window to intercept the main missile before it disperses its payload. And once that moment passes, the defensive equation changes entirely. The pattern of the March 18th strike suggests a level of planning that goes beyond a single tactical decision. Analysts reviewing the sequence point to a broader shift in how Iran is conducting its operations against Israel. Rather than relying on isolated missile launches, the attacks appear to follow a coordinated multi-stage approach. Earlier phases of the confrontation may have focused on targeting elements of Israel's early warning and detection systems. Weakening radar coverage or delaying response times can create vulnerabilities even in advanced defensive networks. Once those systems are under sustained pressure, the next phase becomes more effective. The use of cluster munitions appears to fit into that sequence. By deploying weapons that release multiple submunitions, attackers can overwhelm defenses not just through volume, but through timing. Even a slight delay in interception can allow one missile to multiply into dozens of descending threats. The result is both operational and psychological. On the operational level, defenses must handle a rapidly growing number of targets. On the psychological level, simultaneous explosions across multiple areas create a sense of widespread vulnerability. Instead of a single impact zone, entire parts of a city appear under attack at once. From a strategic perspective, the message is clear. The ability to bypass or saturate defensive systems signals an escalation in both intent and technical capability. As the scale of the strike became clearer, the impact on civilians and urban infrastructure began to unfold across Tel Aviv. With explosions reported in more than a dozen locations, emergency services were forced to respond to multiple incidents at once. Ambulances, fire crews, and police units were dispatched across the city, often operating simultaneously in different neighborhoods. As reports of damage continued, casualties were confirmed in several affected areas. Residential buildings suffered structural damage, while commercial districts experienced fires and broken infrastructure. In some places, roads were blocked by debris, making access difficult for first responders trying to reach injured civilians. The nature of the strike created additional challenges. Unlike a single impact zone, the spread of submunitions meant that emergency resources had to be divided across a wide area. Coordinating response efforts under these conditions required rapid decisions and constant communication between agencies. For civilians, the psychological impact was immediate. Residents who took shelter expecting a single explosion instead experienced multiple blasts across different parts of the city. The unpredictability increased panic and disrupted normal patterns of movement and communication. Another concern emerged in the aftermath. Unexploded submunitions can remain on the ground after an attack, posing ongoing risks long after the initial strike. These remnants can detonate unexpectedly, creating hazards for civilians, emergency workers, and recovery teams in affected areas. The strike on Tel Aviv may represent a turning point in how this conflict is being fought. Until now, many exchanges between Iran and Israel have focused on targeted strikes, specific facilities, military sites, or isolated infrastructure. The use of cluster munitions suggests a shift toward area-wide effects where the objective is not just precision, but saturation. That shift carries significant implications. Israel's defensive systems, including Iron Dome, are highly effective against defined incoming threats. But as attack patterns evolve toward multiple simultaneous impacts and dispersed submunitions, the pressure on those systems increases sharply. Each engagement now requires more interceptors, faster reaction times, and greater coordination across defensive layers. If such tactics continue, the cost of maintaining effective protection will rise, not only in resources, but also in operational strain. There is also the question of escalation. The introduction of cluster-style attacks raises the possibility that future strikes could follow similar or even more complex patterns. As each side adapts to the other's capabilities, the conflict risks entering a cycle of continuous technological and tactical escalation beyond the immediate battlefield. The implications extend further. Military planners and governments around the world are closely observing how these tactics perform in real conditions because what is being tested in this conflict may shape how future wars are fought.